Hello, and welcome back to Time in the Round, a podcast here to talk about all things Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm Ruben,
And I'm Joe.
and gosh, we are in for a big one this week. From Opens to OTS champs to YCSs happening in South America with no coverage whatsoever, we're here to talk about all things new format and the events that are going down.
So yeah, 40 minutes starts now.
And, well, I mean, it's been quite a packed month so far, it feels like, Joe.
I mean, it has, and I apologize to everyone, obviously, for last week not putting the podcast out, but I was up in Auckland for the New Zealand Open on the commentary team with Keza. Ruben, obviously, up there running the event. And it was awesome to see 105 duelists show up from all over the country and battle it out for the title of New Zealand Open champion. And we saw like a huge array of decks throughout the day, and even in the top card, like there were so many different decks, and it was really cool to see. The format's definitely very wide open.
It's kind of scary how open it is. I feel like this is we exist in these like two dimensions of one where it's so obviously one best deck, so you either play it or play to beat it, or what we're in right now, which is this very strange like amalgamation of decks and formats and strategies that are able to be played from 3 structure decks to $700 strategies. It's kind of the parallels are kind of crazy. But I guess we'll start with the New Zealand Opens. This was a one-day event that took place on the 4th of March. This was a kind of a regional style event, so only Swiss rounds. We ended up, obviously, I think we got about 108 attendees. And so this equated to 7 rounds of Swiss. And we saw so many strategies across all the players. I think the highest representation in my notes from my very, very quick data gathering was the branded, specifically the Despia branded version, being at 15 players.
Yeah.
Followed by Trap Tricks at 13.
11 or 13, yeah. It was a
And
lot
then
of
Cash Tira at 11. So kind of these were the big 3.
Kind of to be expected as well. Like I feel like New Zealand generally has like gravitated towards those sort of cheaper structure deck strategies. Like, and then there's nothing against those. Like they're very good. Like the last one we saw would have been Salomon Great, which is at the level of what the Trap Trick structure deck has been at. One thing that I've been saying like a lot this month or this week is any new player getting into the game. Right now we have a strategy that literally costs you $50, and you can top a regional or do very well with it. So
Yeah.
I wasn't super surprised to see that many Trap Tricks decks out there.
It's really cool to see the new structure deck strategy getting some traction. I feel like that gives me a lot of hope for upcoming products. I mean, we can already know that the next structure deck coming is based on Red Dragon Archfiend, so hopefully it kind of follows suit. But I do feel like the Trap Trick strategy really got the boost it needed from the structure deck. It kind of slungshot it into competitive viability, which is really nice. Like, I just feel like that's a really good
It's healthy
product.
I feel like you need these products in circulation for like players that want to play at a high level, but don't necessarily have the money to compete. Like I remember in high school and before, like you could probably convince your parents at some point, maybe go mow the lawns for a few weeks or something, and you could get that $50 together to like buy that structure deck. Like it just gives a bit of hope to the budget players, and I feel any format that has a budget deck in there is generally a good format for everyone. We all sort of enjoy it, that rather than being sat behind a paywall and not being able to compete.
Sure.
Yeah, and going back to the New Zealand Open, one thing I saw as well in the top 8 deck list, there was 8 individual decks. Like there was no repeated.
So
decks.
cool. That is so cool.
Yeah. So starting off with 8th place, we had J Park with Bestial Dragon Link, a deck that is still pretty decent. Obviously, it's got Bestials probably took a little bit of a backseat this format, but they still have their place against like decks like Branded. So if you see a lot of those during the day, you'll have a good time.
This
But
is also the strategy he took to Sydney with
and
the
did very
Bestial
well
Dragon
with.
Link in peak Tiashizu format. So I feel like it's definitely he probably would have caught a lot of people off guard by seeing such a high Bestial count.
Yeah, and then in seventh place we had Corey Lewis, another person who likes to top big events a lot. So he was playing Branded Despia, the only one in the top cut with the most represented deck. But like again, very well done. We had another regular in the top cut, Dino, with Scareclaw. Now this one was quite interesting. Like I hadn't seen Scareclaw play, so thanks for that. Round one, I believe it was on stream, and I was watching two decks that I had no idea what they did. But I soon worked it out, and the Scareclaw like impressed me. I mean, the trap was like perfect for going against a link strategy. That's definitely something that I noticed in that game. But the power level of that deck is extremely high, and the link free Tryheart is very hard to deal with.
And also, I feel like it used the adventure engine the best because you quite literally do not need your normal summon to do anything except become a Link 1.
Yeah.
And your field spell cares about things being in defense mode, as does a lot of your cards. So realistically, I feel like having the adventure engine put a 2000 defense token and a 28 defense Omni Negate on board, I just feel like that's already so beneficial.
Mm. Yeah, it is. I was quite intrigued by the list he was playing, so it's cool to see some different things out there. Fifth place we had Matt Wilson. Quite unfortunate because I mean he was in like the quote unquote final of the seventh round of Swiss, and if he won, he would have been the New Zealand Open champion. Instead, he falls all the way down to fifth place. But he was on Labyrinth, a deck that did pretty well over the whole weekend because obviously we had the regional the following day as well. And even just internationally, we've seen Labyrinth climb all the way to the top. I feel like this is probably in the top sort of 3 or 4 decks at the moment.
Yeah,
Being able
obviously
to,
strongly piloted by people like Ryan Yu, who really have taken this deck to like a lot of success internationally. So it's really nice to see that this was kind of the only deck that had 2 slots in the top 8.
yeah, so I actually lied before. Sorry, yeah, there were 2 Labyrinth decks in the top 8, but yeah. Fourth place was Jarway with the Sword Soul, a deck that I believe
mean,
he's played for a long time as well.
so classic. I was actually just reading something online, and it was like Sword Soul feels like a particular strategy. I can't remember the top of my head where it masks itself as being quite linear, but the second you scratch beneath the surface, the way that deck can play is so varied and unique. And so it makes sense to take something that's quite strong and that you've played for a long time into an event where there's quite an open meta.
I feel like the baseline strategy of Sword Soul has always stayed relatively simple, and that's why you often see players, like newer players, picking this deck up and doing relatively well with it because it's not hard to do your full Moyi into the Zhizhao and Baron sort of combo, but it's the smaller players like knowing when to like special your Ecclesia and not use your Moyi effect, and then synchro in and then reborn in and doing Moyi. Then just small things like that, and using your 10-year engine correctly, making sure you're playing those at the right time, leaving follow-up plays for the following turn. There are like lots to the deck. It's not as simple as most people think. I think it's a very good deck to pick up and like learn as you go. For a newer
I feel
player,
like it teaches really good fundamentals.
it does. It's a very it's deceivingly complicated, but also very simple. Yeah. So, and speaking of complicated, Tearlament in third place with Ellie Flynn. Yeah,
It's really cool to see this deck still kicking.
It is.
Feel like a lot of people wrote it off, and I think for good reason. Obviously, the deck did get hit to the absolute smithereens. However, obviously, some notable differences that we have in the TCG that OSG do not. We have 3 Field Spell, we have 3 Rhino Heart, and so a lot of your abilities to play are still there. Or not to mention that, obviously, to like a larger extent, we have 3 Fenrir. And so there's an ability to search your Telement Kashtiras. And I think this is cool. It obviously uses things like King of the Swamp because polymerization is still really strong as your way to keep fusion summoning. And you get the strong cards such as Grapha, Dragon Overlord, Guardian Chimera. There's so many different ways that this deck can play.
Yeah, there's lots of utility in this deck as well, like Foolish Burial Goods, send in your Rainbow Bridge to the grave. Also send in the Scareclaw trap that searches you cards too. Like there's a lot that this deck can do. Yes, it isn't as resilient as it used to be, but we saw on stream like Ellie absolutely dominated in the feature match, and like just watching cards like Mecha Phantom Beast going into Cherubini, send in your King of the Swamps for fusions. It was cool to see, and I like the innovation for this deck, and I always thought that there would be Terror Element still in the format, but like obviously sits more at like maybe a rogue to like tier 2, tier 3 sort of level, like, but it's still very good, and obviously it shows here with a top 4.
Very pilot dependent.
Yes, very very much so. If you make one mistake with it, you're in trouble. Yeah,
absolutely.
And third place, I believe. Oh no, that was third place. So second place, we had Marshall Stevenson, featured on the channel last week as a deck profile, and obviously going back to back second place on the New Zealand Open, then the regional the following day, and he was playing Labyrinth. An interesting build, considering it used all 3 pieces of the furniture.
Yes, this to me it makes a lot of sense. I think if you're not anticipating a lot of Kashtira, then this is a really good way to play. Not to mention, obviously, it can set up a lot of your back row quite quickly. Not to mention that as long as you're sending cards from hand to grave to activate costs, you can begin to recur your clock, which lets you activate your traps the turn they're set, as long as you control, I believe, a Fiend or a Labyrinth. I believe it's a Labyrinth. So being able to kind of mitigate this resource loop, not to mention that obviously it creates bodies on board, so you're not always having to bounce things like your Ariana or your ladies that you might want to keep on board for your battlings via the effect of things like Big Welcome. And it can give you a consistent way to keep setting your Labyrinth traps from deck, or spell traps from deck, obviously, if you are in a position where you just really need to see something like a Welcome or a Big Welcome.
Also interesting that he chose to play triple of the Lord as well, Lord of Heavenly Prison. I know a lot of lists kind of I've seen anyway, play like sort of one of this card. And he's opted as well not to play any Pot of Duality, which is quite a popular choice in this deck as well. But yeah, lots of go second cards in there as well, so you can still play. Obviously, evenly matched. I think we saw was card of the tournament on stream.
I feel like it's card of the format.
It
might be an early call, but it's so powerful.
I mean, definitely in these early stages, it's definitely card of the format. I feel like people will start building to kind of anticipate evenly matched a little bit more, and then that's where you might see it drop off again. But always interested in these sorts of formats, seeing cards like kind of bounce in and out of decks. And yeah, first place, we had Sinisa from Hamilton take it out with Mathmech. Pretty dominant all day, obviously, being 7-0. And the 2 games he had on stream, very, very quick and very, very efficient, and just completely OTKing the opponent with Access Go Talker. So,
well, it's just Cyber's good stuff. Really, I feel like is in a good position. Obviously, Mathmech can thrive in the absence of Bestials, so you're not losing your Diameters, your Sigmas. Not to mention if you're reborning light or dark targets for transcode reborns. There's just so much that you can do in terms of your ability to not only set up a really strong board, because obviously Deco Talker Heat Soul being able to draw you so many cards over, what was it? You can draw like 2 cards over your 2 turns, 3 even. Yours, your opponent's yours. So the ability to like generate a lot of hand advantage is really strong. It utilizes small world really good because obviously this is kind of a 1-card starter strategy, and can already natively play cards like Lingaribo, which may be a concern for people that want to special summon more. So I feel like it's really, really well equipped in this format, and again, really rewards a strong pilot.
Yeah, and 13 hand traps as well, also being quite good to draw off your heat off.
Good cards, Ash, Bell, Nib, Vela, everything is available to you.
Yeah, also like Lingaribo, quite strong card against Labyrinth too. So like, yeah, I mean, obviously congratulations to Sinisa. He came to, and like I believe he topped the following day as well.
Yes, and he was in the. I believe he was 8th.
Yeah, and then since then as well, he's also gone on to win the OTS championships in Hamilton. So he's on a bit of a roll with this deck, and just on a roll in general. So yeah, congratulations, and again for being the New Zealand Open champion.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations. And it was super fun to organize this event. Really amazing turnout from the New Zealand community, and I do hope that this is the first of many. So I look forward to creating a new event in the near future. But this was an action-packed weekend, so we transitioned from the New Zealand Open on the Saturday to the Card Merchant West City Regional on the Sunday, which is where I got to play.
No deck lists on hand, but Ruben took Trap Tricks to the event, and I got some messages while I was very upset on a bus back from Auckland because I got missed out on this event, unfortunately. And I think you took out second place in the end. So
Third place.
Third place, was it?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
it's my
correct.
first ever regional top. Can you believe that?
I mean, when you're running a lot of them and judging, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I do often judge these events or organize them, so my ability to play is heavily restricted. But it has been super fun to play an event and actually do well with the strategy. Hadn't played the deck at all. Joe quite literally saw me build it the night before. And I find the deck super fun. It's super interesting. There's really strong strengths with the deck, and the ability to be quite explosive and aggressive is nice. It's kind of my perfect balance of a trap and a monster-based deck. I feel like Labyrinth is really strongly trap-focused, with obviously the secondary powers of something like Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. The way that Trap Tricks plays is there's just such a varied ability to do monster-based interaction and trap-based interaction. So I just think it's a really fun strategy.
I think it's very strong, and it's taken a lot of people by surprise as well. Obviously, it didn't seem to do. I don't really know, but I didn't really see many lists from the OCG. I don't know if it just didn't come out in the right format. Like, this has obviously just come out after the huge shakeup we had on the ban list. So, but yeah, it seems like a perfect format for decks like Trap Tricks, and obviously it worked for you quite well on the day, coming third place. I know second place was Marshall, as we said before, and first we had Michael Dwan with his classic adventure bestial branded sort of deck.
Yeah, just kind of really like playing enough bombs that are impactful. But I think it was nice to see, again, pretty varied top 8 from my immediate knowledge. I think it was 2 Math Mechs, 3 branded, Labyrinth, Trap Tricks, Sprite.
Yeah.
So a bit more branded this time, which I feel like is kind of called for. But I just don't. I think it's still quite open. Like, it's not the days of like the Nationals format last year when it was just so clearly like a clean cut between Sword Soul and Despia branded.
Yeah, and one notable absence I sort of noticed over the whole weekend is I believe there was only one deck in the whole of the top 16 for New Zealand Open that was Kashtira. I believe Connor Bryson took out maybe 14th, 15th place, something around there.
He was the highest placing at 15th. And I believe Barry was also playing strategy at 16th.
Yeah, so not many, really. Like, everyone was expecting this Kashtira deck to do very well. I think maybe the whole room had prepared for it extremely well, obviously, to take those 11 decks and not really see much success from them. Also, the regional the following day, I don't think had any Kashtira in the top cut again.
No, I think there was 2 to 3 pilots of the 45 attendees.
Yeah, so I mean, very like low representation in a way as well. I think because of the price point of the deck. But
I also just think New Zealand's meta doesn't really lend itself to Kashtira. Like, it kind of, it reminds me a lot of these kind of combo decks that really thrive in Europe and then just never make a splash here, because it's just so hard for that strength to translate to our game. I feel like New Zealand players by nature are a little less competitive, and they definitely value kind of their decks, more comfort strategies and pet decks over, oh, well, I guess everyone's saying this is the best deck, so it is. Because quite honestly, based over these 2 events, and even the events we're going to talk about moving forward, there is no clear best deck. So you're kind of just taking something you're comfortable with.
I honestly don't think that Kashtira is the best deck. I don't think it can be classed as it. I mean, we're looking at all these results around, not even just New Zealand, but obviously we'll get onto it a bit in a second. Like YCS Lima, like there's one deck that did relatively well, but in a room full of that many people, it's not a huge turnover.
It's kind of crazy.
So yeah, moving to the weekend just been, we had the OTS Championships scattered around New Zealand. I think these are really cool events. I believe that they're essentially designed for like every single store to have its own champion as such.
Mhm.
So you get to and we saw some really unique and cool decks from all over New Zealand take these ones out. In Palmerston North, I believe we had about 15 players, and Alistair
Yeah.
Parks took it out with Kashtira.
Amazing.
We also had a whole bunch of Sword Soul and one Sprite. Oh, we had two Sword Soul and one Sprite, and rounding off the top four.
Yeah.
So Kashtira having its first success that I know of in New Zealand, anyway.
I feel like its
Against all
first
the
success was this weekend. I feel like there were a couple of
yeah,
lists scattered across the country, and I know Connor Bryson went second with it at the Card Merchant West City Store Championships.
yeah. Peter
Um,
Bird
uh,
took out one in Dunedin, I think, as well
yes, he
with
did. I believe he took
Kashtira.
out the Hobby Lords. And the Vagabond that I attended, I was also second. And that top four consisted of Despia branded, Trap Tricks, Despia branded, and Drytron. So again,
Mhm.
really, really varied. We saw Dinosaurs win an event. We've seen Marincess win an event. Again,
ABC.
this ABC, this kind of like comfort strategies doing well.
One thing I've got to say is checking out Earl's ABC list. It is the first list I've seen to utilize Ancient Fairy Dragon since it's come back off the ban list.
That is
Um,
true. That is legal as of 3 days ago in the TCG. Oh, maybe 4 days ago in the
yeah, so
TCG.
he was utilizing it with Destrudo. So like you go Destrudo and one of the ABC pieces and search your Union Hanger, and that's also, or even just he had the Furion field spell as well
Coliseum.
and a
Yeah.
Dragon Ravine. So like it was quite like a cool, unique deck, and
Mm.
I like seeing all this sort of, I guess, innovation with new lists and new. Well, it's just so much going on. Like even in second place down in Dunedin, we saw a Mech Knight vote, and I mean, and it still can seem to hold in this format. Like things are just so up in the air right now. There's so many decks that you can do well with. James
Yeah.
McIntyre as well. Christchurch taking a top four with Infernity of all decks.
Yeah, because it's just no
Um,
boogeyman.
there is
There's no
no.
big threat. There's no overarching presence in this game right now that just forces you to have to build a particular way or have a strategy that like plays to counter the big boogeyman. You can just kind of have a little bit of fun.
And even small things like the only real kind of decision you have to make at the moment is how many copies of cards in your extra deck, like just in
Yeah.
case if you get extra deck rep. Like apart from that, you can kind of just do what you want. Like I've recently just picked up a Runic engine and played Runic Sprite, and I found that really fun. But there's like other decks I've been playing again that can compete. Like you can pick up anything right now, and it seems to do pretty well in New Zealand. Like it is one of the bonuses of living in a small country as well. Like we can just kind of choose to play whatever we want and make it work.
Yeah, and not just New Zealand, but international, because
Mm.
finally we just had YCS Lima conclude. This is a YCS style event, so obviously super competitive and really amazing to see that there is, these events are being sought after and attended.
Mm.
I can't immediately recall the attendance. I
I think it
believe it
was
was somewhere
590
around the
something.
500s.
Yeah, but
And
the thing to note as well here is like this. A lot of people were kind of writing this off, being like, "Oh, it's South America, like they don't have the players." But honestly, big American names went to this tournament. I believe that some of the sort of professional Yu-Gi-Oh players headed over there to play this YCS. So there wasn't just a kind of bunch of mugs in a room. Like it was, there were some decent players in it, and you can't write these results off.
yeah, you really can't because people actively attend these events, especially because South America are relatively connected to obviously North and Central America. So people that play in this environment can do. Obviously, people that are playing Canada as well, it's really accessible.
Mm.
Then you obviously have like the diehards, people like Rafael Nevin will just make that travel over. So this event, 2 days, obviously, it's a YCS, and this event was won by Sprite.
And Sprite Adventure, of all things, it was a Sprite Adventure mirror match in the final, which was kind of just weird, to be honest, with me, because I've played a fair whack of Sprite, and the Sprite Adventure list always kind of felt like probably the second or best variant. Um, I don't. Maybe it's just because the adventure engine does what it does well that this has happened. Like it's consistent. But yeah, I'm still trying to work this one out in my head. But I think that the top four was even weirder.
Yeah.
We saw Salamangreat make top four of YCS in 2023.
And again,
Um,
adventure Salamangreat.
yes, yeah, and I mean, I heard that this deck was like taking names all day. I feel like it's kind of along the same lines as what MathMech is and what we saw with the success in the New Zealand Open. Salamangreat, obviously, quite a compact kind of engine, and being able to chuck in a venture like to protect the engine, where its problem has always been you stop one play in Salad, it kind of just stops the whole flow of the deck. But now you can push through, obviously, with the adventure engine and play 15 hand traps. I bet you that's what the list will probably end up looking like. It hasn't been released yet, but
What
that's
has?
what I'm imagining. It has.
Yes, I did find a list available. Never not a printout one, but a quick one that was shared at least to the Facebook
Oh yeah, no, I do
pages.
see it here. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that this is really cool in terms of, again, seeing these old strategies being revitalized. I really think that this is a unique take on how this deck plays. And I mean, yep, you're right. I'm looking at
14 hand traps.
14 hand traps.
Yeah, 14
So
hand traps, and we got Code Talker and Flame Buffalo and a whole bunch of just the normal Salamangreat stuff.
yeah,
But I mean, it works, right? And as we said before, like all it takes with Cyburst is 2 monsters on the field to go into your full like transcode, decode talker, access code talker line, where you end up attacking twice with like a 5300 access code. So
yeah, and
you're putting your opponent, so close to lethal at all times.
Yeah, it's amazing. I feel like this is a really unique way of the deck. I think that obviously microcode are really strong, being able to get you things like Signet Conflict or mining. And I mean, I personally, my pick in the side deck, I really do agree with it. I do think Anti-Spell is a sleeper hit right now. I do think Anti-Spell is a really strong
And
choice.
D-Barrier. Also,
D-Barrier is not a sleeper hit. That card's broken.
No. Yeah. I think as well, interesting, I've just looked at this list, it only has one Rite of Aramesira as well.
Because Enchantress can add from grave. So you're never punished. Yeah, you're never punished for only playing one. You just want to make sure. I guess it's like body's first, token second, which honestly makes sense in a Salamangreat strategy that wants to go second in OTK.
No,
and so, yeah. Adventure Sprite, we saw one Kashtira in the top 8, even. I know that Nevin and Cotton lost in top 16, both playing Kashtira as well. So, really interesting to see how that just kind of started to lose the conversion. So, the top 8 consisted of 2 Sprite, obviously Adventure variants, a Salamangreat Adventure variant, a Kashtira, Fluondaries, which honestly, name something more South American. Name something more South American. A Naturia Runic, which is a deck obviously you've been playing with, and I've seen a bit. I think it's a really cool take. Labyrinth Stun, which did consist of using Dragoon, which I feel like is correct. And the final one that's really kind of got the most eyebrows raised across social media right now is Runic Plunder Patrol.
Yeah, I mean, both those engines have been decent, and I guess that person has just found some synergy that other people haven't really looked at yet. Because I don't know, I may be completely wrong. I'm not in the Plunder Patrol community as such, but I haven't seen any Runic Plunder Patrol decks do that well before. I've definitely seen the Adventure version see a lot of play, but yeah, very interested to see what this one does. I'll touch briefly just on the Naturia Runic as well, and just Runic in general. Runic is a strong engine. I think that
really
Fountain's still like a powerhouse of a card. Having it reminds me a lot of Striker in a way, apart from the whole battle phase skip thing. Having like just all these accessible spells that you can activate from your hand and just gain really decent effects of, and then just recur them all with your Fountain is very Sky Striker-esque in a way, and so splashable as well over multiple decks. And I think that's it's added another thing to the whole game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like we're seeing engines such as Adventure, where everyone was calling for them to be hit, now being splashed across all these road decks. You've got Runic being splashed across road decks, but it pulls those road decks up to the level of like Kashtira and Sprite and such.
Well, it gives a lot of these rogue decks what they're missing, which is
Mm.
spell-based interact or non-monster based interaction.
Yeah.
It's why something like Labyrinth does so well, is because all your interaction is in ways that your opponent can really struggle to deal with. Not to mention that obviously Kashtira care a lot about face-up cards, and Fountain letting you play cards from hand mitigates a lot of those things. You also minimize your chances of losing to things like an evenly matched. So I really think that, yeah, Runic is kind of on the up right now, and for a good reason. It's competitive, it's accessible, and the strategy itself as an engine or as a deck really has an ability to shine right now, specifically because there's no Ishizu cards in this format.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too. I think that those cards were always sort of like keeping a lot of decks kind of in a cage almost. And what we're seeing now is like the ban list pretty much opened Pandora's box, and now everything is just everywhere. It's a
All at once.
very hectic and like chaotic format right now. I haven't seen one of these for a long time. Maybe the closest to it would have been maybe the 2020 format with like Prank Kids and Tri Brigade and Drytron and like 5 or 6 other decks that you could play.
Oh yeah, that
But
was a good format, yeah.
it was a good format, but this one it just seems even more crazy. Like you're seeing, like just every tournament is bringing out like a new deck list. Like who before today would have been like Salamence Great's a good choice for this format? No one. Like no one would have said that. Like everyone would be just like, Salad's a bit old. I don't think it can hold in this format. And all of a sudden, you're seeing it top of YCS, and I bet you a lot of locals around the world right now are going to start seeing some more Salamence Great decks pop up.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think a lot of these cards still, like, the strength of these cards hasn't disappeared. There's just the handicaps that the format had provided to them are no longer there. Like, a lot of these decks were graveyard centric, and cards like Mudora and Keldo were just so hindering for them. And then
Yeah.
obviously a lot of back row decks really didn't want their traps to go to grave, so cards like Argido and Kelbeck being limited is just like so much more inviting to so many more strategies, which is awesome. I feel like it's a really good place for Yu-Gi-Oh right now.
It's good, but at the same time, it is so hard to play and do well in these formats consistently. In a way,
So hard to deck build right now. It is so hard
very
to
hard.
deck
Yeah,
build.
because
It's
you can't sit there and go, right, what do I need to put in my deck for Runic Plunder Patrol? You just can't think like that. You have to
Yeah,
still build to the best decks.
let me tick in my cards for Adventure Sprite because that's a deck that's
Mm.
always around. No, you're never gonna see that. You're never gonna see that on a consistent level. I think right now what people are gonna really benefit from, and I feel like what's gonna give a lot of people strength, is confidence in your own strategy and knowing what your cards do and being unable to understand the card knowledge of what your opponent's strategies do. I feel like right now, more than ever, card knowledge is just like the best resource you can have right now.
You're right. And I think what we're seeing is a bit of a not I wouldn't say regression, but like we're seeing a shift back to like just main decking lots of just generically good cards, and that seems to be the answer right now. Like we're seeing in almost every list, like Ash Blossoms back at 3 in every deck again. Effect Veilers are seeing play again. We're seeing Imperms in almost every single deck again. Like all these hand traps that are just generically good have kind of are the only sort of consistent piece over every single deck at the moment.
Yeah.
There's no niche like, oh, you have to play 8 Bestials to play the format or 9 Bestials to play the format. There's none of that anymore. And I
Yeah.
think with the removal or tier element from the format in a way, and I say removal, you can still play that deck and do well, but removing it from that tier 0 meta threat where everyone had to have Bestials or you couldn't play has just really blown this one wide apart.
Yeah, and I love it. I feel like it's so much fun, and I'm really excited to see how the format develops. Because we actually don't have any like new product until I believe June. Like, I think we've
It's a
got,
while.
yeah, it's a really long time. Oh no, May. Obviously, we've got product in May, being Cyberstorm Access, but we've like
Yeah,
got a
sure.
good month of no strong like new product releases, and we won't even see Cyberstorm Access cards until next month. So all these events that are going on right now is kind of like,
Mm.
kind of just like playtime. Like,
From memory, though, there's not a lot in that core set. I don't think that will I mean, there's Mekanko and a couple other things that I know of. Is there more cash cards, or is it?
No more cash cards. You've got the Monodome strategy, so the level 2 synchros. And then obviously some really, really impactful cards for Bestial, for the Branded Despia strategy.
Mm.
Obviously, don't stop them from losing to Ash Blossom, but give them a couple of better plays, and gives reason for everyone to play something like the Gronk Guignol, because you can then vomit out a giant synchro monster that's really impactful as well, being the Lulualeph.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I feel like you're going to see a couple of strategies come out that are unique, some really strong legacy support. Obviously, I'm really excited for the Pearly cards, and
Pearly is sitting
Yeah.
there waiting. Yeah.
just standing by, ready for Pearly Lily to be a Starlight and for me to cry into my pillowcase. And yeah, but right now we don't have anything on the horizon, so it's
And the
really
stuff
open.
that's on the horizon as well is not gonna. I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I don't think it's gonna change the format all that much. Like, it's gonna almost just add more freaking vegetables into the soup as such. Like, it's you're gonna have pearlies. Like, they're gonna be decent. Like you see in the OCG there, I think like probably the
Second
second or
best
third
deck.
best deck right now. Yeah. So it's just adding more. We're gonna have just even more to deal with. And it's not overwhelming as such. It's just fun, in my opinion. I'm really liking the way that this format has started. You're even seeing like decks like, I believe there was like even an Eldritch deck coming back into the top 16 of YCS Lima as well. So there's just so much. Like, everyone can play the decks that they want to play finally. No one's now hindered anymore, and I'm really looking forward to not even just a product, but like also these bigger events that are coming out soon.
Yeah, and
Obviously,
no better place to play the decks that you love than regionals, and we've got one coming up this weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to be there in person, but I will be there. I'll
Spirit.
be commentating on stream with Ellie, and Ruben and Dino, a few other people from Auckland, I believe, are heading down to Dunedin. Christchurch players obviously will make the trip over. So we're expecting a relatively decent event for Dice Jar Games' last ever regional, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm looking forward to covering this event. After the results from the last few tournaments, I just have no idea what's going to be taking this one out. But either way, I'm just looking forward to it.
No clue what will take it out. No clue on the kind of strength and strategies that will kind of make themselves known, but I do feel like we are going to see some pretty fun strategies, and I'm really excited to play some more in-person Yu-Gi-Oh! Love Dunedin, love the South Island, and I look forward to arriving in Dunedin on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, that's going to be huge, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to have a few sore heads, I believe, on that morning of the regional.
There'll be a sore head on the Sunday morning when I have partied
yeah.
my heart to my heart's content, because I look forward to enjoying the South Island to its fullest, and I look forward to seeing everyone there. See, there's so many people in the areas that, places, something like Auckland can be quite hard to travel to. So it's nice to be able to provide these events at kind of a more local environment, and this will probably give people, like the Invercargill players and, like you said, more Christchurch people, to really make some travel to an event in the South Island and kind of like give their best shot.
Yeah, and I'd like to also just personally say congratulations to Greg for running many decent events down in Dunedin. Obviously,
Streamed as well.
Yeah, streamed ones as well. I mean, our first ever interaction was you were commentating on the multi-format and Sands event, which raised $2,500 for a charity. Very, very dear to my heart. So, like, always grateful for what Greg did down there, and I wish him all the best for the future.
And I look forward to it. Give me one deck that you think will win Dunedin this weekend.
Win Dunedin? I am going to say, oof. I'm going to give Branded a bone here because I haven't seen it win anything apart from maybe that one event in Auckland. But I reckon Branded. I think Branded might do it.
Interesting. What's one deck you would like to see on stream?
I would like to see Mekanko. So if anyone out there wants to play something ritual, I know that losing Elf was rough, but if you would like to make my day, I'd like to see a Mekanko on stream. And I would also like to see any sort of runic variant. I think those provide quite interesting long games. So, yeah.
Interesting.
What about
God. I mean, obviously, I want to win. Duh. I won't tell people what I'm playing. But it may be some variation of a female-based archetype with traps. Um, leave that to the imagination. And one deck I'd like to see on stream. Honestly, I love seeing this deck play, and I love seeing it piloted well. I love Sun Avalon Rika. I love that deck. I love how
And
unique that plays.
And I think you will see it down there. With obviously Troy Reeves, Roger, I think plays that deck as well. Like there's a few people that are huge Rika Sun Avalon fans.
I love that strategy. I just think it's so fun.
I definitely need to brush up on what that deck does because I did spend a lot of time in New Zealand Open with my mouth open trying to work out what was happening. So that's something I need to improve on for this tournament.
You know, Neuron is a great resource. That's all I've got to say.
But with that is time in the round.
Oh, amazing. Well, end of match procedures. Thank you so much for listening, as always. If you do want to see Marshall Stevenson's back-to-back second place deck profile, please be sure to check out our YouTube channel at Time in the Round. I believe Time in the Round podcast, apologies. And see how he managed to take his deck to success across that last weekend of big events. If you are listening along with us on YouTube, please comment, comment, and subscribe. Share it with a friend. It helps amazing. As well as if you're listening on your preferred podcasting app, please rate and review us. Share it with a friend. It helps a lot as well. But as always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Ruben.
And I'm Joe.
And that's Time of the Round.